May 1943, Pacific Theater. The dense foliage yields. A young samurai, emaciated and racked with fever from malaria, lifts his bare hands toward the American leathernecks. He anticipates a fatal shot. He was indoctrinated that surrender equates to a disgrace far exceeding death. Instead, a corporal from the United States offers him a flask. Water. Pure water. The nascent seeds of compassion are sown in this moment of bewilderment when all his convictions begin to crumble. Across the vast expanse of the Pacific, countless Japanese soldiers encounter this same startling reality. The majority of captured Japanese personnel held the firm belief that they would endure torture and execution. Their superiors had characterized the Americans as savages. Propaganda depicted caricatures of fiendish soldiers with blood-drenched hands. They were taught that it was preferable to perish in combat, preferable to end one's own existence than to face the enemy's barbarity. Yet no barbarity materializes. Instead, aboard hospital vessels traversing the Pacific, injured Japanese captives receive medical attention on par with that afforded to American servicemen. American physicians mend fractured bones. Nurses change dressings. Sustenance arrives on platters multiple times each day. Men who subsisted on mere handfuls of rice and foraging for greens now receive provisions in accordance with the Geneva Conventions, ranging from 2,000 to 2,850 calories, contingent upon their assigned duties. This sustenance far surpasses what many had consumed in months on the front lines. Angel Island, California, serving as the processing hub, marks the first instance these captives set foot on American mainland soil. Guards escort them through medical evaluations. There are no assaults, no torments. Instead, immunizations are administered, delousing procedures are performed, and they are issued clean uniforms. One captive later chronicles in a journal he never dispatched home, "They treat us as if we remained sentient beings. This defies comprehension." The rail journey to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, unfolds America's immense scale. Mile upon mile of agricultural land, metropolises that dwarf Tokyo, manufacturing plants operating ceaselessly, illumination pervading every vista, and an omnipresent abundance. These soldiers from an island nation forged from scarcity now witness a continent that generates provisions, steel, and machinery with no discernible limitations. March 9, 1942, Camp McCoy, Wisconsin. The inaugural Japanese captive arrives at this location today, Einen Kazuo Sakamaki, the commander of a submersible craft apprehended at Pearl Harbor, prisoner of war designation 1. For 5 months, he resides in isolation, the solitary Japanese captive within Wisconsin. Subsequently, others begin to arrive, hundreds, then thousands. By 1944, Camp McCoy houses precisely 2,700 Japanese prisoners. The communal dining hall elicits the profoundest astonishment. Meals are served, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. High-caliber victuals meticulously prepared to suit the palates of the captives by specialized culinary artists. Portions that exceed their allowances from the Imperial Army. Some weep, others refuse to partake. Convinced it is either poisoned or a stratagem, a guard observes this hesitation and demonstrates. He samples a portion from a captive's dish, sips from his cup, remains unharmed, smiles, gestures, and consumes. Gradually, hands that once gripped firearms now grasp cutlery. The taste becomes a revelation. The sheer abundance serves as irrefutable evidence that all they had been apprised of was fabricated. More sustenance. meals derived from American farms so vast they could engulf entire Japanese prefectures. Fresh produce, protein. A single day's rations contained more food than many prisoners encountered in a week on the front lines. The camp manifests confirm the captives' amazement at the superior quality. Stomachs, contracted from years of near starvation, struggled to process these substantial quantities. Some captives developed digestive ailments due to overconsumption and haste. American physicians also address these issues with gentleness, administering medication and offering counsel on the importance of eating at a measured pace. The commissary at Camp McCoy stocks items that appear extraordinary: confections, chocolate, chewing gum, and tobacco products in quantities that surpass the monthly allocation for Japanese officers. Tobacco, 3.2% beer, and light wine are all accessible for purchase using wages earned through voluntary labor. Prisoners earn 80 cents per diem. Officers receive between $15 and $35 monthly in camp script, with candy bars priced at 10 cents and Coca-Cola at 5 cents. These earnings permit the acquisition of genuine luxuries, items that in Japan would necessitate connections, influence, or exist solely as pre-war recollections. Coca-Cola arrives at the commissary, priced at 5 cents a bottle, the identical cost it commands throughout America. The effervescent, dark liquid perplexes prisoners who had never encountered carbonated beverages. Sweet, chilled, bubbling. The inaugural sip prompts coughing from the carbonation. The second sip elicits wonder. One prisoner articulates it in his journal. This beverage possesses a flavor as if it originated from another realm, a world devoid of conflict, devoid of hunger. The psychological ramifications become apparent within weeks. Prisoners who arrived with hollow eyes and in silence begin to smile, to jest, to engage in games of baseball in the communal yard. American guards occasionally participate in these contests. Laughter transcends the linguistic divide. A home run struck by a prisoner garners enthusiastic cheers from both sides of the enclosure. The Japanese sector of Camp McCoy evolves beyond a mere confinement facility. Prisoners cultivate traditional gardens with the commandant's sanction. They erect a Buddhist shrine utilizing materials supplied by the camp administration. The YMCA furnishes incense for religious observances. They are provided with colored tissue paper and slender wire to fashion artificial floral arrangements in the customary style. They construct theatrical stages and present as many as 3 Japanese dramas monthly, complete with self-fashioned costumes and backdrops. Excursions to the local cinema become a weekly routine. Prisoners, under minimal escort, view American motion pictures, including Hollywood musicals and westerns. The casual opulence depicted on-screen mirrors their experiences within the camp. Characters imbibe Coca-Cola as if it were water. Residences feature electric lighting, running water, and multiple chambers. This is not propaganda. This is merely a typical Tuesday. The prisoners comport themselves exceptionally well during these outings, never attempting an escape. This behavior surprises officials at the War Department, but flight itself seems illogical. Where would they flee? Back to a losing conflict, back to starvation and certain demise. The assigned labor details underscore America's industrial prowess. Prisoners engaged in canning factories observe assembly lines processing tons of produce per hour. Machinery performs the work of hundreds of individuals. Food is sorted by size and quality. Produce rejected for minor imperfections is allocated to livestock. America discards foodstuffs that could sustain entire Japanese villages. Certain work crews labor on Wisconsin farms. Dairy operations where individual farms yield more milk than entire Japanese prefectures. Cheese production facilities that discard more dairy byproduct and spillage than most Japanese cities consume monthly. The prisoners begin to comprehend. Japan cannot prevail in this conflict. Japan never possessed the capacity to win this war. The statistics are undeniable. Nevertheless, numerous Japanese prisoners decline work assignments on principle, believing such labor aids the adversary. The Geneva Conventions safeguard their entitlement to refuse. They receive identical treatment irrespective of this refusal. American guards grow complacent around the prisoners. At certain work sites, guards lay aside their rifles and slumber. Prisoners awaken them when officers approach. Trust supersedes suspicion. The contrast with their expectations is absolute. Letters to their homeland remain largely unwritten, not due to camp restrictions. Prisoners are permitted to correspond, to dispatch mail through the Red Cross, but Japanese soldiers bear a profound sense of shame concerning capture. It is preferable for their families to believe them honorably deceased rather than alive in enemy custody. Silence is preferred over acknowledging survival. Yet some do write. Personal correspondence, private journals, documents concealed and preserved. One prisoner pens, "I cannot dispatch this to my mother. She would never credit that enemy captives receive such treatment. She would assume I have lost my faculties or that I dishonor the family with falsehoods." If America extends such benevolent treatment to its adversaries, what does America bestow upon its allies? If American prisoners are fed according to Geneva standards, what sustenance do American soldiers consume? If enemy encampments possess abundance, what exists within American civilian life? The logical conclusion becomes unavoidable. Japan is engaged in a struggle against a nation so exceedingly affluent that it treats captured enemies with greater consideration than Japan itself treats its own combatants. News emanating from the Pacific provides confirmation. Battle after battle is lost. Islands are reclaimed. The tide has irrevocably turned. Prisoners at Camp McCoy receive this intelligence and nod in agreement. They foresaw this outcome. They witnessed it in the commissary. They observed it in the wastefulness. They recognized it in the guards who could afford to extend clemency. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, Allied prisoners in Japanese internment camps confront a starkly different arithmetic. Mortality rates range from 27 to 40%, with 35,500 deaths among 132,000 Western Allied prisoners, rendering these camps 7 to 10 times more lethal than German facilities. Systematic starvation caused American POWs to lose an average of 61 pounds. Routine beatings afflicted 90% of American prisoners. The Bataan Death March, the Burma Railway, with its 40% fatality rate, and the Hell Ships, where 22,000 prisoners perished in unmarked cargo holds. Japan had acceded to, but never ratified, the Geneva Conventions. In practice, they systematically violated both Geneva and Hague protocols, despite assertions of adherence to established standards. Such promises proved meaningless. The spring of 1945 heralds different tidings. Germany capitulates. The European conflict concludes. America's industrial might now directs its entire focus toward Japan. Prisoners at McCoy comprehend what their families in Japan cannot. The nation that provided them with adequate sustenance and medical attention now redirects its full force westward. This signifies either complete annihilation or unconditional surrender. No third alternative exists. August 1945. 2 atomic projectiles are deployed. Japan surrenders. The war terminates. Prisoners at Camp McCoy receive the news imbued with complex emotions. Relief that the killing ceases, sorrow for fallen comrades and a devastated homeland, guilt for surviving while others perished, but also understanding. An understanding born from adequate rations and medical care, an understanding derived from kindness where cruelty was anticipated. Repatriation commences in 1946 and extends through 1947 and 1948. The United States retains nearly 70,000 POWs until late 1946 for the dismantling of military installations. British authorities detain prisoners until October 1947. Soviet repatriation efforts continue into the 1950s. Some prisoners are not returned for decades. Japanese prisoners from American camps board vessels bound for Japan. They carry knowledge that will largely remain unspoken. They return to ruined cities, razed towns, families on the brink of starvation, and they bear tales they cannot easily articulate. Narratives of American treatment, stories of ample food and medical attention, accounts of guards who became amicable, stories of a nation capable of extending compassion even to its adversaries. Due to the profound shame associated with surrender, few Japanese POWs authored memoirs after the war. The silence becomes absolute. Unlike prisoners held by the Soviets who returned radicalized towards communism, captives from Western facilities simply assimilated into post-war Japanese society. Their experiences remained private, their insights unvoiced, yet the tangible evidence persisted. The fact that prisoners survived Western captivity, with survival rates exceeding 96%. The adherence to Geneva Convention standards throughout their internment. The humane nature of their treatment, notwithstanding the absence of reciprocal conduct. Decades later, in rare interviews, former prisoners recount their experiences at Camp McCoy. Many describe the adequate provisions and medical care as a pivotal moment. The instant they grasped the futility of the war, not through battle reports or propaganda, but through the simple realization that their adversaries received treatment their own officers never provided. One former prisoner interviewed in 1983 states, "I anticipated death and received medical care. I expected torture and was immunized. I faced starvation and was given sufficient rations. Everything I believed about America was erroneous. Everything I believed about my own nation was a fabrication." Former Camp McCoy prisoners report being exceptionally satisfied with their treatment during exit interviews. They characterized it as outstanding, a stark contrast to the portrayal of suffering, torment, and neglect disseminated by the Japanese government. These words originate from official War Department documents. The experience of Japanese POWs in American internment camps stands as history's quiet testament. Approximately 5,000 Japanese prisoners crossed the Pacific to the continental United States. A modest number compared to German POWs, a small contingent due to the Japanese military culture that discouraged capitulation. A limited number because the majority of captured Japanese were transferred to Australia and New Zealand following September 1942. Men who anticipated death discovered humanity. Men who expected starvation encountered Geneva Convention stipulations. Men who foresaw torture received medical attention identical to that of American troops. And in finding these things, they carried knowledge they could scarcely articulate. The treatment at facilities like McCoy demonstrated what ordnance and warships could not convey, that Western nations uphold standards even without reciprocity, that humanity endured even amidst conflict, and that strength encompassed the capacity for clemency. While post-war tribunals resulted in 984 executions and 3,419 imprisonments of Japanese personnel for POW abuses, the American treatment of Japanese prisoners remained consistent with international law. The 5-cent Coca-Cola, the adequate daily sustenance, the medical care, and the immunizations, these became the unspoken truths these prisoners carried, truths that remained largely unshared due to cultural shame, truths that illuminated how nations choose to conduct themselves in wartime.